Hello and welcome to this post-minicamp live stream. I'm Tori Petry from DetroitLions.com here in Allen Park. Thank you guys so much for joining us here as we break down everything that happened in the 3 days of mandatory minicamp here at the Lions training facility. We got to watch 3 days of intense Matt Patricia practices, and we're starting to get a better feel for what this team looks like and what their practices look like as well. In a little bit, Twentyman and Mike O'Hara will join me to break down everything that has happened over the past 3 days. But Allen Park also had a couple of special visitors today as NFL Network was in town to do a live show after practice, interview some players, and report on what they saw from minicamp here at the Lions training facility. I got to catch up with NFL Network's Andrew Siciliano earlier in the day. Our talk happened before practice, so we're going to take you to a clip of that conversation so you can catch up with everything NFL Network was looking for at today's minicamp practice.
Tori, we're happy to be here. We're doing a 3-hour show. We're kind of doing like a mini camp tour this week. The Lions are one of 4 teams actually with a mini camp. Yay. So we're here. We were with the Patriots on Tuesday and the Bears on Wednesday. You guys have a beautiful day today, so hopefully there's no like lightning like we had in Chicago yesterday and had to run inside, or like a downpour in Boston or Foxborough a couple of days ago where it looked like it was like the end of days over the stadium. It was ridiculous.
You guys have had some bad luck, so hopefully we bring you some good weather here today. It looks like it. So you guys are going to talk to a little bit of players and coaches today. What are your first impressions of Matt Patricia and the program he's running here?
First of all, I loved him, and I think that we've seen a different side of him, and not that people can't show personality in New England, but I think most people have really stepped back and said, wow, that's a different guy than maybe I thought. That bearded dude on the sideline with his hat on backwards, roaming up and down, looking at his call sheet was like, I didn't know that guy. And I think people have had a chance to see that guy so far. Curious to see how that team reacts to that guy, but so far everything I hear is great. Obviously he's working them hard, but he's pulling back on the OTAs as well with the number of times that they're out there. So there's a balance there, which is an interesting balance. There's a dedication to detail, which I know you guys have heard all the time, but details matter. It matters in our business and it matters out there too.
Now, as of the time that you and I are chatting, you haven't gotten a chance to watch practice yet, but so much has been talked about what this defense looks like with Matt Patricia. What do you think that we can expect from him once that defense hits the field?
I think the one thing that he has stressed, I know you guys have heard this as well, is versatility. So whether it's safeties playing corner or corners playing safety, same with the D-line. I know there's this big question, 3-4 or 4-3, and people are going nuts trying to figure out which one it's going to be. It's going to be a little bit of everything, and sure, there's going to be a lot of New England here, but you can't discount Paul Pasqualone's influence as well. And it's not that he hasn't called defenses. He did in Miami. He did in Dallas. He did at my alma mater, Syracuse, as well.
Then you belong here. There's so much Syracuse influence, and you should be here.
It's not a true story. When I was a student, I used to wait by the door at the radio station in Syracuse to let Coach P, as he was known then, in because he didn't have a badge to come do the Coach P show every Tuesday or Wednesday night. It was my job to wait by the door to let him in because it was always snowing. Right. And open the door.
So this is really a reunion for you.
This is amazing. I'm the kid that used to open the door, and you would go like that. Yeah.
I hope you introduce yourself like that today when you talk to him later on.
Sure. And I'm sure it's just the memories they're going to be. It's going to change this week.
Of course. Yeah. Now, you guys are going to watch practice, talk to some players later. What are the biggest storylines that you're paying attention to with the Lions this week?
I just think the fact that you have a team that was good and had a good quarterback. You know, so many of the new head coaches, they're coming into to situations where you got to rip everything down and start from scratch. That's not the case here. You have a 30-year-old quarterback who's still in his prime, who's coming off a great season. You have pieces on offense. You have pieces on defense. You almost made the playoffs last year. You did 2 years ago. You've won 18 games in 2 years. This isn't a tear down. It's more of a remodel. And you want to get on the field and play now, but you can't. It's a process. I would love to see where they are in the process.
So with that in mind, what do you think the expectations are for Matt Patricia's first year versus a coach that's coming in and kind of doing a rebuild? He's coming into a team that has an established offense, an established quarterback. What do you expect from him in 2018?
Well, you want a playoff team, certainly. I mean, that's what I think I know the fans here want. I also know that coming from Chicago yesterday, there's this attitude, not that they're saying, well, hey, look at the Rams, but people go, well, a year ago you had a really young coach. You had a second-year quarterback taken at the top of the draft, and bam, they win the division. Can the Bears do that? Well, this division is very competitive. Obviously, you guys, the Packers, the Vikings, nobody here is a pushover. Yeah, this can be a playoff team. It should be a playoff team. I think that's the expectation for everybody in this building. It's a tough road, though, in this division.
Joining me now to break down everything that happened in the 3 days of mandatory minicamp are our very own Tim Twentyman and Mike O'Hara. Gentlemen, I think the biggest observation that everybody who was out at practice had is just how fast tempo those practices are. They seem to be really ramping up the intensity here in these minicamp practices.
You know, one of the things that jumped out to me was, like you said, Tori, the pace and how they get in and out of different drills and different sessions. You know, they got the time on the boards there, and, you know, some they want 10 minutes of good work in a drill, others they want 5, others they want 6. And as we learned on Wednesday with Patricia, if you're loafing between drill and drill, he's not having any of it. I think, you know, efficient is the word I would use.
Sure.
You know, I think he wants practice time to be efficient. Look, you don't get as much as you used to. He mentioned that on Thursday. Just the fact that he'd like to get his hands on these players more, but when he does, he wants to be efficient with them. He wants them to be efficient, and that's one thing I took from practice.
Yeah, there's very little standing around by people in position groups. A good example of that, I think, was the first day of minicamp when the offensive linemen, either 15 or 16, and one of them was in a red shirt, they all lined up together with 3 quarterbacks taking snaps. All of the offensive linemen at once, and you're not going to play with 16 offensive linemen, but they take the snaps and they fire off the ball, and they did that 5 or 6 times as part of the warm-up. I've never seen that before, ever.
Well, we've definitely seen intensity, quick pace. We've seen them running after practice even. But outside of those things, what have you gathered about maybe a little more clues into what this team will look like in the fall?
Well, I don't know about that, what it's going to look like. But one thing to me, the command of Matthew Stafford was an asset for any coach, but especially a first-year head coach. Because if you can run an efficient offense, it changes the dynamic of the entire practice. You don't have balls hitting the ground. You don't have fumbled snaps and things like that. And so I think that was a real value. I think you saw one of the intangibles you have in an elite quarterback and Stafford, a veteran quarterback, is that it makes everything run smoother.
You know, I think for me, some of the second-year guys, I think have jumped out to me early on. There's such a big jump from your first year to second year. So guys like Kenny Galladay, I think he stood out these 3 days. I think he really has an opportunity, or really has a chance to be a very good red zone weapon. I thought Jared Davis looked very comfortable calling this defense. Look, this is a transition for him as well. Now I know he was thrown into the mix last year, but this is a different language. This is a different defense. I think pre-snap you can tell a lot about those guys, and he looks very comfortable. And Tease Tabor, a guy who they kind of moved along very slowly last year, got his opportunity to play later in the year. I think he only played 3 snaps his first 9 games, but he's jumped in right away and now been a starter opposite Darius Slay. So I think one of the things that stood out to me is just the leap that some of these second-year guys have had, and how much it looks, at least early on, that the Lions are going to count on some of these guys.
If you don't mind, I'll take some of the older guys. No, I thought Matt Cassell, I was surprised how youthful he looks and the athleticism he has. It's his 14th year in the league. When you really think about it, he's not your classic backup. He started almost 100 games in his career. He's been a Pro Bowl player. This is his 7th team, but he's had some really good years with some good teams. I think he's going to add something to that room. I'm assuming he's going to be the backup. We'll see. In Golden Tate, for whatever this is worth, I saw him catch a pass down the right sideline on the last day of minicamp and cut to the middle and just kept on running. He looks to me like he could play a game Sunday, maybe a doubleheader.
Well, I know, Tim, you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago after the first open OTA practice, just paying attention to who was playing where as we observed these practices. But we've gotten to see 3 days in a row of practice now. I think a couple of things that stand out is we're continuing to see Frank Ragnow play at the guard position. We're continuing to see LeGarrette Blount work a lot with the first team on offense. And you mentioned Tease Tabor playing with the first team on defense opposite of Darius Slay, Jamal Agnew in the slot as well. That secondary is something that I've been paying a lot of attention to during these practices, and I think it's interesting seeing those young guys get some opportunities there.
Yeah, good observation. And Quandre Diggs, I'd throw into that mix too. I think he's gotten a lot of work with the safeties. I think if they had a game Sunday, he would be a safety on this team. So Quandre Diggs and Nevin Lawson split time at the nickel, and then Quandre went back to safety. So it goes back to that versatility and guys being able to play lots of different spots. And Quandre is one of those guys that we've seen in these 3 days. He's been at the nickel, he's been at the safety, He's been at the safety a little bit more than he has the nickel. And so, obviously Tavon Wilson's dealing with an injury, so we'll have to see kind of how much that all plays in.
Sure.
But that'll be an interesting thing to watch come training camp is kind of where he slots in the most.
Yeah, and late in the last day, Tracy Walker, the third-round pick from Louisiana Lafayette, made a nice interception. But I'm not sure that there wasn't some sort of breakdown there because he was the only one around the ball. That doesn't happen an awful lot. But
maybe he's just really, really good.
But I thought just a play. Look, you've got to make a play. Tio Redding, a kid from Bowling Green, from Warren, Michigan, went to high school there. I've seen Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback of the Packers, say this over and over to young guys: do something to get noticed. Tio Redding did something to get noticed.
All right, guys. Well, I think that pretty much covers those 3 days of minicamp practices. Once again, intense practices out there, especially today on Thursday with the heat that was out there in this Michigan summer weather that we're having here. The Lions definitely got a good workout in there, and we'll be looking forward to the final week of OTAs next week before the Lions break for summer. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this live stream. We appreciate it. So for DetroitLions.com, Twentyman and Mike O'Hara, I'm Tori Petry.